Most men spend years trying to figure out what makes a woman think about them. Replay conversations, checking their messages, wondering if they said the right thing or if they should have said more. And the truth is, the more effort they put into trying to impress, the more invisible they become. Because attraction doesn't work the way most people think it does. It's not about having the perfect face, the perfect body, or the perfect lifestyle. It's not about money. It's not about status, and it's definitely not about memorizing lines you found somewhere online and hoping they magically work. In fact, some of the most attractive men you'll ever see are not the most good-looking, and they're not the richest either. But they have something else, something most men completely overlook. They know how to create a feeling. And once a woman feels something real with you, something emotionally different, something she doesn't experience with everyone else, that's when she starts thinking about you when you're not there. That's when you stop being just another guy in her messages and start becoming the one she can't quite figure out why she's drawn to. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There are 5 simple words that can trigger that shift. Not in a manipulative way, not in a forced way, but in a way that taps directly into how attraction actually works on a psychological level. And no, these are not random words. They work because of what they represent. They communicate confidence without arrogance. They show desire without neediness. And most importantly, they make a woman feel seen without you trying too hard. But here's the part almost nobody tells you. It's not just about saying the words, because 2 men can say the exact same thing and get completely different results. One gets ignored, the other becomes unforgettable. Why? Because one understands the psychology behind it, and the other is just repeating words without meaning. So in this video, I'm not just going to give you the 5 words. I'm going to break down why they work, how they affect her emotionally, and how you use them in a way that feels natural, not forced. Because once you understand this, you won't need to overthink your conversations anymore. You won't need to guess what to say next, and you definitely won't need to chase attention. You'll become the kind of man who naturally creates it, and by the end of this, you're going to understand the difference between being a man she forgets and being the one she keeps thinking about, even when you're not around. Now let's get into it. Let's be honest for a second. Most men don't get rejected because they're unattractive. They get ignored because they're predictable. They say the same things in the same way, with the same energy as everyone else. Hey, how are you? What are you up to? You're beautiful. And on the surface, there's nothing wrong with these messages. They're polite, they're safe, they're normal. But that's exactly the problem. They're too normal. There's no emotional impact, no direction, no sense of presence behind the words. It feels like the message could have been sent by anyone. And when something feels generic, it doesn't stay in her mind. It gets lost. And here's where most men make the mistake. They think if they just try harder, say more, or be extra nice, they'll stand out. So they double text. They over-explain. They try to keep the conversation alive at all costs. They become overly available, overly agreeable, always trying to say the right thing so they don't mess it up. But what they don't realize is that behavior slowly drains attraction. Because instead of creating curiosity, it creates pressure. Instead of showing confidence, it shows uncertainty. And instead of leading the interaction, they hand over control completely, hoping she'll decide where things go. Now think about it from her perspective. If every guy is trying to impress her, trying not to offend her, trying to win her approval, then none of them actually stand out. They all blend together. And when a man blends in, he becomes forgettable. Not because he's not good enough, but because he never gave her a reason to feel something different. You see, attraction isn't built through logic. It's built through emotion. And emotion comes from contrast, from experiencing something that feels different from what she's used to. This is why the men who naturally attract attention aren't the ones trying the hardest. They're the ones who communicate differently. They don't speak to impress. They speak with intention. There's clarity in what they say. There's direction. There's a sense that they know exactly what they want and they're not afraid to express it. And that alone changes everything. Because when a man communicates with certainty, it immediately separates him from the crowd. It signals that he's not there to chase, he's there to choose. And that shift, even though it seems small, is powerful. It changes how she perceives you. It changes how she responds to you. And most importantly, it changes how she remembers you. So before we even get into the 5 words, you need to understand this foundation. If your communication feels like everyone else's, you'll get the same results as everyone else. But the moment you start speaking with clarity, with direction, and with emotional intent, you stop being just another option. You become an experience. And that's exactly what these 5 words are designed to create. Now let's break down the psychology behind why they work so effectively. Now let's go deeper because if you don't understand this part, the words won't work the way they're supposed to. Attraction is not logical. It doesn't happen because someone checked all the boxes on paper. It doesn't happen because a man said the correct sentence or followed some perfect formula. If that were the case, every man who memorized lines would be successful. But that's not reality. Attraction is emotional. And more importantly, it's subconscious, which means a woman often doesn't sit there thinking, I like him because he said this exact thing. What actually happens is she feels something first, and then her mind tries to make sense of it after. That feeling is what matters. And the male mistake is this. Most men communicate in a way that only engages logic. They ask questions. They exchange information. They try to keep conversations going. It feels like a back and forth interview, not an emotional experience. And when there's no emotional stimulation, there's no attachment. Now here's where things start to shift. The human brain is wired to respond strongly to 2 specific signals in communication: certainty and recognition. Certainty means you know what you want. Recognition means you see and acknowledge the other person in a meaningful way. When those 2 elements are present together, something powerful happens. The brain starts to associate that interaction with emotional safety and excitement at the same time. Safety because you're grounded, clear, and not confusing. Excitement because you're direct, intentional, and different from the usual passive communication she experiences. This combination creates what psychologists often refer to as an emotional imprint. It's that lingering feeling someone leaves behind after the conversation ends. You've probably experienced it before without even realizing it. You meet someone, you talk, and later that night you find yourself thinking about them again. Not because they said something extraordinary, but because the interaction felt different. That's the imprint. And this is exactly what most men fail to create. They focus on keeping the conversation alive instead of making the conversation memorable. Now here's where the 5 words come in. These words are not powerful because of how they sound. They're powerful because they naturally trigger both certainty and recognition at the same time. They send a clear signal. I know what I want, and at the same time, I see something in you that I value. When a woman feels both of those in one interaction, her brain doesn't just process it as conversation anymore. It processes it as an experience. And experiences are what people remember. This is why 2 men can talk to the same woman and one gets forgotten while the other stays on her mind. It's not about who talked more. It's about who made her feel something real. So as we move into the actual words, don't just think of them as phrases you're going to repeat. Think of them as tools that activate a deeper emotional response when used with the right intention. Because once you understand that, you're no longer guessing what to say. You're creating impact on purpose. And now let's get into the first part of the 5 words. Now we get into the first part of the 5 words, and this is where most of the shift begins. I want you. Simple, direct, no confusion. But don't underestimate how powerful this actually is. Because most men never communicate like this. They hint, they suggest, they test the waters. They say things like, maybe we could hang out sometime, or if you're free, we could do something. And on the surface, it sounds fine. It sounds polite. It sounds safe. But underneath, it communicates hesitation. It tells her you're unsure. So if this made you see things differently, I want you to do one thing. Drop a comment below and tell me what's one thing you've been doing in conversations that you now realize might be holding you back. And if you made it this far, you already understand something most men don't. So make sure you subscribe because this is just the beginning. There's a lot more you're about to learn, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming.